This is the talk show that takes a no-holds-barred approach to politics, where truth and integrity are the standard and the Constitution honored. From Renaissance Studios, this is Champion News Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Champion News Talk Radio, brought to you by championnews.net, where you can get all of your latest political news. This is Carol Parisi, and this morning our founder Jack Roser and myself have Steve Tucker. And Steve Tucker has a business, and it's Small Business Insurance
Services.
I was going to say solutions, which is a service.
Close enough.
Well, welcome, Steve.
Thank you.
And thank you, Jack, for having this great show every week.
Well, there has to be somebody that's willing to have a rant about the problems of our state.
Well, I think insurance has a lot to do with some of our problems in our country and in our state. Steve, tell us a little bit about that dreaded thing called Obamacare. What can our listeners know now that a few weeks ago...
Are you still going to be in business with Obamacare enacted?
Well, September 23rd, 2010, they adjusted the medical loss ratios, which is in the healthcare law. And what it did is it cut the operating margin for every insurance company in America down in half. So, for instance, United Healthcare or Blue Cross Blue Shield or some of the bigger carriers, they would operate on a 70-30 margin or an 85-20 margin or even an 80-20 margin. When the healthcare law passed, there were 6 months from March 23rd to September 23rd where they had to now automatically on that date stop their operating margin, not their profit margin, just their operating margin, and cut it in half.
Explain that a little bit.
This is price control.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And what happened was...
Haven't we had enough experience with price controls?
Yeah, and that's what they're very good at. Big government is great about price control.
Nixon
Never
tried
works.
that.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Troubles.
And so it ended up
River City, bad.
hurting the little person. You know, for instance, Humana fired 4,000 people right after the healthcare law passed. There are 300,000 independent health insurance brokers like myself across the country. All of us have had our commissions cut in half with every carrier. So the idea from the Obama administration is you just make it up with volume. Well, it doesn't work that way when your overhead is the same and your commissions have been cut in half.
Quit worrying. He'll change the prices of all of the people that are charging you.
Exactly.
He'll cut them in half, too.
Exactly.
And then further down the line, and ad infinitum, he's going to chase down everybody in the world with his wonderful administration. He's going to set the prices to make it all work. What a brilliant man.
Hope and change.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, several weeks back, there was something that's the Supreme Court now?
Yeah.
Explain to our listeners.
Here's what's happening. The Obama administration had a chance to send the healthcare law to the 11th court, the 11th Circuit Court. And the problem is that it's a majority conservative appointees there. So they knew they were going to lose in that 11th appeals court. And so instead of going there, what they did is they let it go directly to the Supreme Court. That decision was made earlier this week. There were two other things that also happened. Last Monday, not this Monday, but the Monday prior, on the 14th, 46 states met in Washington, D.C. with the Health and Human Services Department, representatives of 46 states.
It was September 14th.
September 14th.
It was a few weeks back.
Yeah.
That's 46 states out of... Obama said
57.
the 57?
57, yes. I wish he had started Obamacare in the 7 states.
How did 7 Arab states get into our union?
That's very interesting. Very interesting analogy, Jack. So what happened is they all met in D.C. with HHS, Health and Human Services, and the overall concern was, how are we going to be able to set up these new healthcare exchanges by 2014? Who's going to pay for this cost? For instance, in Illinois, in 2014, it's going to cost us $2.5 billion. Starting in 2014.
To do what?
To enroll all of these people onto Medicaid. So, for instance, the great way to correlate Obamacare is to look to what's happened in Massachusetts. And Mitt Romney's been talking about how great the healthcare law was. There's been some mistakes, but there's things I would change. But we have 92% of our citizens insured. What he doesn't tell you is that half of those who were enrolled are on the Medicaid system, which means
Medicaid bankrupt?
Yes. Well, it's not only is it virtually bankrupt, but taxpayers are paying for it. So yes, he has these people insured, but
and
the
it's fraught
taxpayers
with
are paying.
fraud.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, so is Medicare as well.
Yeah.
So it's just making a situation that's already bad worse.
Oh my.
And the most frightening thing about that is that there were 2 studies done. One was done by the American Academy of Cardiology in 2005, and then there was a follow-up study done in 2009. And what they were commissioned to do is to find out the survival rate of people who have surgery on Medicaid compared to those who have private health insurance. When the American Academy of Cardiology finished their study in 2005, they found out that the likelihood to die after surgery was 50% higher than people who have private health insurance. So 4 years later, big government's got to work on that, fix that. Can't have 50% of people dying. So they commissioned University of Virginia. They had a study in 2009, and their study found out that now the likelihood to die after surgery is 97% higher for people who have surgery on Medicaid compared to those who have health insurance.
It doesn't mean that 97% will die, but that the ratio of the free market stuff,
correct,
it is almost double.
That is exactly right.
Death rate.
Wow.
Yeah, and now that's the biggest problem because, we hear from the political pundits that they took $500 billion from Medicare to fund the new entitlements in Obamacare, right? But hardly anyone talks about the study that was done by the chief Medicare actuary, Rick Foster. Rick Foster did a study. Now, this isn't a right-wing blogger or a left-wing blogger. This is the chief Medicare actuary. His study revealed that over the first 20 years of Obamacare, if it's allowed to be fully implemented, there will be $4.95 trillion cut from Medicare. So it's far worse. The problem with that is, if you are cutting that much from Medicare, who's going to suffer the most?
The taxpayers.
The senior citizens who rely on their medical care through Medicare.
Absolutely.
So the left wants to demonize Paul Ryan's plan, which I thought was a common sense reform option for Medicare, and they say he's destroying Medicare. But in reality, Medicare has already been destroyed by Obamacare.
Now, what was Paul Ryan's plan? What was the difference between Obama plan and Paul Ryan's plan?
Paul Ryan's plan, the easiest way to describe it without getting into details is Obamacare empowers bureaucrats. Paul Ryan's plan empowers the patient. That's the easiest way to describe it. So instead of further bankrupting an already bankrupt program, Medicare, by massively enrolling people and reducing the reimbursement rates to doctors, which is what's happening in Medicare. The scariest thing about this legislation is it's going to reduce the reimbursement rate for people who have Medicare to less than those on Medicaid. So that's the most frightening part. So the quality of care for all senior citizens is going to go down. The chances of seeing a physician are going to be even less. When Dr. Friedman was here, he's running for the Illinois Senate in the 29th District. One of the things he talks about as a physician is that there's a section in the healthcare law that no longer allows physicians to open their own hospitals. You cannot do that any longer. So they're all being basically like the Borg, assimilated into the healthcare law, which doesn't allow them to open their own freestanding hospitals.
It's easy. All we got to do is go to Cuba to get our care.
Right, exactly.
Well, Michael Moore did.
Yeah.
Michael Moore thought that was just a great plan.
It's so great there. And that's the thing that kills me. Our friends on the left want to talk about how great the socialized medicine systems are. They point to our neighbors in the north, Canada, how great it is. No one has to pay for anything.
Then why do people from Canada come to the United States to get quality health care?
Exactly right. There's a gentleman named Rick Foster who runs a company called Timely Medical. And all he does is arrange medical care in the United States for people in Canada. And there's a website called Free Market Cure, which is a wonderful website about people who have had to get life-saving medical treatment in the United States because the waiting period for them to have things done, just a basic MRI. There was a gentleman that's featured in one of the videos at freemarketcure.com where he had a tumor in his brain. He had to get an MRI. He couldn't get an MRI. He had to wait 3 months just to get in. If he had waited the 3 months to get an MRI, he would have died. So he went to Rick Foster at Timely Medical. Rick Foster immediately had him transferred over to the United States. They did the MRI immediately and found a tumor and removed that tumor from his brain. Had he waited 3 to 6 months to get an MRI,
he would have been dead.
He would have been dead.
My husband had a brain tumor back in 1985, and my husband was busy working, and he said to the doctor, he said, well, can I do this after I close this quarter?
Yeah.
And the doctor said to him, he says, yeah, I'll be doing brain surgery on someone probably won't be you.
Right.
I mean, that's how important it is. It's
sure.
timely because
those things progress fast.
and this is what this administration is giving us for health care. Well, Steve Tucker, you know, what is going to happen in Illinois? If you could just give us like 20 seconds, a quick teaser for our next section. What can happen in Illinois because of the implications of Obamacare?
Well, it's not what can happen, it's what is going to happen. It's going to cost us $2.5 billion, which we do not have. We have a debt in this state of $12 billion.
The cost is going to go up and the services go down?
That's exactly right.
How does that happen?
You know what?
Central planning.
We're going to find out how that happens because Steve Tucker's going to stay with us, so you do too after the break.